Mariana DiRaimo.
And when did you first come to the college, Mariana?
I came as a part-time teacher, I think, in 1984, and I became full-time in 1985.
And how did you hear about the college?
Oh boy, I first heard about the college when actually I saw the picture for the very first graduation from Manchester Community College, and it was on the front page of the Manchester Herald. Now, what year would that have been? That would have been 1965 or something like that. And I remember there were about, I don't know how many graduates, a handful of graduates. And I looked at that picture and I said, Manchester Community College. I said, look at this. This is never going to go anywhere. You know, that's the first thing I thought. So that's when I first heard about it. And then I went to college. I was still in high school then. I went to college. I eventually started teaching. And one of the things that I remember went through my mind was, because this college became very successful, was, wow, there's a college in my hometown. And I was teaching in high school, and I thought, wouldn't that be the ideal situation if I could teach college in my hometown?
So you started as an adjunct here while you were still teaching high school?
Yeah, I was part-time in high school and part-time here.
Okay. And then when did you get a full-time appointment here?
In 1985. Yeah.
Do you remember who was on the search committee?
Yes. It took place in Dick Vizard's office because I began in the business careers division. At that time it was called that. And it was Dick Vizard, Leslie Brown, Judy Schwartz, Rosemary Pisk, and I think one other person. It was very casual. It was in his office in the brand new, at that time, low building. And it was nothing like the search committees are today. I mean, we didn't have to do a presentation. I just answered a few questions. But I remember at the end of it, I was such a nervous wreck that I came out of the office and Seal Grout, who was the secretary then, was sitting at her desk, and she just looked at me and she said, how did it go? And I burst into tears. I said, it was terrible. You know, I didn't do very well. I don't think they liked me. And, well, I guess they did.
So what was it like teaching here in the mid-'80s?
Well, I first remember Hartford Road, the Hartford Road campus, and when I became full-time, it was the first year that the low building was built. And it was, as everybody I'm sure has been saying, a much smaller college. So I knew everybody. And the students, our classes were full at that time. One thing I liked about it was the different variety of students that I would get, because I had come from high school, and when I got to college, it was different, and then the diverse, I'd get older students and younger students. And then I taught in the low building for as long as I was in the business careers division, and when I switched to the liberal arts division and taught English, I moved to Faculty East, and that was a blast, for all the reasons that everybody's talked about.
Tell us about the transition from business to liberal arts. What was behind that?
In the early, I believe it was probably the late 80s, early 90s, I got a layoff notice because the state was in a budget crisis. And I was devastated. My dream job was about to be taken away from me. And so I guess I have to credit Jonathan Dowby, because I was one of 3 or 4 people faculty that got layoff notices. And he called me into his office and he said, if you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you want to do? And I said, I still want to be a teacher, but I love literature, I love reading, I'd like to be an English teacher. And he said, well, there are so many good graduate programs around, and if you were able to do so, would you get a master's in, English? And I said, yeah, I would do that. And so he kind of paved the way for me to go to Wesleyan. I got another degree, a master's degree in English, and they moved me to the English department.
So what was it like in those early days? Well, I guess it would probably be around 1990, moving into liberal arts. Was that a culture shock?
It was a lot different than the business careers division. Yeah. Everybody was funny and nice. Not that they weren't in the business division, but it was a different atmosphere. So I loved it. They were very welcoming. Nobody treated me like I shouldn't be there, or I didn't have enough, qualification or whatever. They were nice.
Who were some of the people who helped you make the transition? I mean, you were a teacher previously, but now you've got a new content area.
Let's see, who helped me make the transition? I'd have to say Steve Strait, Kathy Sullivan, because they held a class for people whose jobs were in danger to help them teach composition, writing composition. So at the very beginning, I would say those two people. And then Susan Heward, all the people in the English department were wonderful.
Are there any students that stand out particularly in the 20, 25 years or so that you've been teaching here?
Individual students that I had? Yeah. Quite a few, well, not quite a few, but there are a handful who became good friends. We became good friends, which is nice when that happens. It doesn't happen very often. One remarkable student, her name was Jean Allard, and I had her as a student, and I say remarkable because she was a single mother, and she would walk to the college every day from Center Street, where she lived, and walk home again. She was so determined to get a college degree. And it was the very first year that the President's Student Award was created, and I nominated her for that award, and she got that award. So she was a very deserving recipient of that. And she came over my house one time for Thanksgiving dinner because she was going to be alone. So that was a memorable time.
Any accomplishments in your career that stand out as highlights?
He's sitting right over there. I snagged the handsomest, smartest, funniest man at Manchester Community College. And he's the love of my life, Michael DiRaimo.
That's quite an accomplishment.
It is.
It really is. It's extraordinary. What changes have you seen in 25 years in terms of the college culture, the way we do things around here?
It was a lot easier 25 years ago. And I think that's because we knew each other better. It just seemed like back then it was much more informal, and I had a lot more contact with people. And I think that's because now we do everything with email. We don't have to even talk to anybody on the phone anymore. Before, you'd have to talk to somebody on the phone, you'd have to go to their office, and now that kind of personal bonding isn't there. And because it's so big, I don't know very many people anymore.
If you could change one thing about your career or about the college, what would it be?
If I could change one thing, what would it be? I don't think parking? I don't think I'd change anything. I might have, different kind of food in the food court or something, but I I like my job.
Anything you'd like to add that we haven't touched upon?
There was something I was going to touch on, but I can't really remember. Other than to say that I think, I mentioned it at the beginning. This was the job that I thought I always wanted. And I really should give credit to Leslie Brown. I don't know if she's been in, and I followed her. She was my cooperating teacher at Bolton High School, and she was a great teacher. I just modeled myself after her. Then she came to MCC. I took her place at Bolton. And then she was the one that contacted me and said, why don't you teach part-time at the college? And so I did. And then when they became an opening, Leslie said, apply for this job. And so I came, and then I was her colleague. And she was a terrific mentor to me. She was wonderful.
Anything else we need to discuss or add?
No, I think you covered a good deal.
We're good? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.